had your dash from?
Yeah, I haven't gotten back to him. I've just been crazy.
Do you mind if I just that if you don't, that's okay.
Let's see how the time goes. Okay. All right, so welcome to Desert Blockchain Smart City session on Wednesday, August the 29th, 2018. There were some comments on the meetup page about this being the 5th Wednesday of the month, and I pointed them to send their comments to Augusta Caesar because he extended the length of the month. So anyway, welcome. I always say this, but it's really, really true. Desert Blockchain is about community. And you being here tonight is part of that community. And we're all busy. You're taking time out from your family and your friends and whatever you're up to. And I just want to really, really appreciate and thank everybody for being here tonight, because this is what's possible in our community in Phoenix and Arizona to come together. And you're going to hear some great, great information tonight. We get some awesome dimensions to smart city and blockchain and so forth. But the opportunity is to get to know somebody that you don't know and connect, because that's what's really going to last. And that's what's going to be part of continuing the momentum and the synergy here. So I'll repeat it. This is recorded and live streamed, and basically by being here, you're consenting to being recorded. So I've got a few announcements before we get started. We do have a sponsor tonight, Oracle, as well as UAT. I appreciate them. And we are kind of building some momentum, and we're getting people that are interested in, announcing things and so forth. And we're going to make some more announcements tonight. Kind of crafting a policy around that. If you're interested in announcing something or offering something, that's fine. Please run it through me first, and you'll probably get an okay. But the other criteria is I ask that you make some sort of benefit or offer to the community in general, some sort of discount or additional item or whatever. So those are the two criteria. Run it by me, and then offer something to the general community. So, any questions? Who's here for the first time? Wow, that's awesome. Very, very cool. So again, I'm Jay Carpenter. I'm the founder of Desert Blockchain. Jason Horton just came in. He's the co-organizer of Desert Blockchain. And basically, the way this is going to go, we're going to have some presentations. We've got 4 presentations, and we'll open it up for questions and so forth. And we'll end at 8:30, and then we'll have about a half an hour to continue to network and get to know folks. So, Landy, you want to say anything about Landy's with UAT?
So he left the bat. Sure. Do you recognize that? Over here.
Okay, cool.
That's one thing I needed to announce. There's no money in there, or I wouldn't have said anything. Dirty laundry. But yeah, thanks everybody for coming to UAT, and you all saw the perimeter 83 space. So that's for rent. We're just opening it now for co-working space. Then we're going to start training classes. Sure. Extending the perimeter of the school to businesses. That's the name, perimeter 83. 83 is the year the school started, so it's been around 35 years. It's like a best kept secret. Any graduates from here?
Any students?
Usually there's a couple, but no students. Okay. So do you have our information? Any questions, just let us know. And that's all I have to say. So cool. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Landy.
Yeah.
I'd also like to introduce Mark Goldstein to the AZ Tech Council, and there's another Smart Cities conference.
Sure.
Good afternoon. Kind of synergistically to this, perhaps, the Tech Council next Thursday has their second annual Smart City and IoT Forum. It's like 6 hours, noon to 6 at Sky Song, and the cost is $40 if you're a Tech Council member, $60 if you're not. I can't offer you a discount, but if you come up to me after the reception, I'll buy you a drink. You can say, I saw you at UAT. So that's my, since I can't offer them member pricing or anything like
And
that.
you've got this, the mayor of Tempe, is that right? The mayor of Tucson?
Tucson, I've been working on a PEMA, Association of Government Smart City Initiative. Tucson will present like 4 mayors, I think, or
Yeah.
and Intel's big honcho for IoT global development is speaking. So aztechcouncil.org.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All right, we also have some folks from Nexus here, and they've got a conference coming up in the middle of September, Nexus conference.
November 19th through the 21st at the Commission Resort.
And that's Scott with Nexus, and they are offering some benefits to Desert Blockchain members.
Yeah, 30% discount on ticket pricing. And we have full conference pricing and daily conference pricing. So Jay and Eileen from Desert Blockchain will be sending out an email later tonight or in the morning with details and the discount.
And I will be doing the Build a Blockchain on September 19th. So, yep. All right. Who else? Joe, you are making an offer. Where are you? Ready to-
Hi, my name is Joe Hoffman. I'm an industry analyst by Costa. I just published this week a market research report for enterprise blockchain applications. Not cryptocurrencies, but enterprise applications. Energy, utilities, most of it you want to think about. But the offer is, it's published, and if you go to the comments section on the link up, you can go to the website, you can download the executive summary, which is about pages of content, including an overall summary. Of course, if you have to register, you probably get an email from a salesman, so you expect that. But it's a pretty good report, and I think it's worth your while for these downloads that go to the executive.
It's on the meetup in the comments section.
The company is called Tractica.com, Tractica.
So,
but you can find it in the comment section.
any other announcements? Cool. So we're here tonight to talk about smart cities, and we're really fortunate to have a phenomenal group of people here. And I know who's here in this room. And this conversation, along with connections and collaboration, we have the makings of creating something really cool. But before we get into that, let's kind of talk about what smart cities are. And one of the first smart cities, in my view, is Burning Man. So this is actually a live stream from Burning Man, and you can see all the activity going on, and it just so happens that it's going on right now. So I think it's the ingenuity and the creativity and the artistic nature of this is something that we might learn from. So if you've got a car that shoots flames or other artistic stuff, maybe that will fit into the conversation later tonight. So let's what's that? I have no idea, but yes.
Ask why would this example of a smart city? What parts of it are?
I think the electronics that are involved in it's not connected, and part of what we're talking about tonight is a way to connect it via the blockchain. But here's a better example of a smart city application that I think does a great job of defining and talking about some of the possibilities of smart cities and blockchain. So this is about 4 minutes, and let's just kind of play it. And
hello again from Oaken Innovations. We're excited to show you at Money 2020 some of the things we've been working on with Toyota Research Institute. Earlier this year, we debuted our proof of concept, blockchain-enabled peer-to-peer car lease application at Consensus in New York. This application allowed consumers to lease a vehicle from a car owner using a smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain, file storage on IPFS, and a mobile application to lease and control access to the vehicle. Prior to our car lease model, we developed a blockchain-powered automated toll road system with connected cars. This project won us the top honors among the entire world at the UAE International Blockchain Hackathon. These applications allow for instantaneous remittance between the transacting parties. They do this without the need for payment processors by using logic coded to a smart contract. The hypersecure blockchain-based IoT controls at a level of security not currently available on the consumer market, all while reducing or eliminating the need for server infrastructure. Oaken Innovations wants to give you a glimpse into the mobility future we envision and show why this is important to the payments and financial services industry. We use the blockchain for application logic and data storage, replacing traditional server infrastructure. Here, we use the blockchain to store vehicle identity along with GPS. Now we add road and mapping data and allow trusted entities to update this decentralized data layer. Smart road sensors can also feed this database. This allows for a complete view of all vehicles and infrastructure with current construction and traffic conditions while allowing third-party applications to be built on top of this data. Let's amend that vehicle data for lease or ride-sharing services. This now allows consumer mobile apps for ride-sharing or leasing using this blockchain services layer. In a ride-share or lease transaction, things get very interesting. Using blockchain technology, instant value transfer and microtransactions are now possible. Within one smart contract transaction is instant remittance to several parties, including the vehicle owner and driver, insurance provider, toll road authority, and road tax entity. Why is this valuable? The automobile owner and driver receive guaranteed and instantaneous payment of funds. Microinsurance policies for each ride or lease transaction can be paid to an escrow contract, then remitted to the insurance provider once the ride is complete, with the balance of that escrow going to the rider or lessee. We can use an escrow contract for autonomous toll payments and even eliminate toll gates from the toll road infrastructure, as we can prove the location of the vehicle using GPS. We can even have smart toll road infrastructure where roads are only charged during peak hours. As consumer behavior moves away from purchasing fuel and favoring pay-per-ride mobility over vehicle ownership, road and infrastructure authorities will face a shortfall of tax revenue that currently funds the construction and maintenance of roads. Included in the mobility transaction is a usage-based tax to replace this lost revenue, even short trips where a fraction of a penny is needed for taxation. All of these parties receive the benefits of instantaneous remittance, all included in a single transaction user experience, all without the need for payment processing intermediaries. Let's go further. With this blockchain platform in an autonomous driving world, we get to go beyond rider mobility into other applications. Solar energy production is highest when the sun is shining the most. That's typically in the middle of the day. Energy demand typically spikes in the morning and then again in the evening, time that solar energy production is weakest. During low mobility demand times, automated vehicles can store solar energy during peak production times, then deliver that energy when and where it is needed. Also, since we have the automobiles equipped with 5G connectivity, we can provide a self-healing mesh network across large areas, as well as partitioned consumer Wi-Fi service, all while the vehicles receive microtransaction reimbursements for sharing their internet connection. Thank you for your time, and we hope you enjoyed our version of the blockchain-powered vehicle future. For more information, please visit us at oakeninnovations.com and blockchain-mobility.org.
So I think that's a pretty powerful example of, it's not per se.
Car companies make leasing look easy, but in reality, it can be quite complicated.
So that, I think that starts to hint at some of the possibilities of what's not only available through smart cities, but also sort of the integration of all these disparate elements. So when I was involved in the telecommunications industry, I watched this sort of integration of a bunch of different things that prior to technology changing were very separate. So it used to be that a telephone call was very separate from a television show or a radio broadcast. Well, then this thing called the internet came along, and all of a sudden that stuff started to melt together. And I think what we just saw in that video was yet a further melting of many, many different things: money, transportation, energy, communications. All of these things are coming together. And I think that's part of what we have an opportunity to explore tonight, is this coming together of all these disparate things. So it's my pleasure to introduce the Assistant Chief Information Officer of the City of Phoenix, Peter Ames. And Peter has recently moved here from the city of Albuquerque. I think it was, what, 2-3 months ago?
2 months ago.
Yeah. And he brought the city of Albuquerque to the #2 digital city in the United States. So he has a great record and a great interest in this whole realm of smart cities, and he's interested in blockchain. So Peter, thank you for joining us, and take it away.
Okay, thanks. I also have AJ Yoshi with me here. He's our deputy CIO, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about some use cases and opportunities we might have. But you want to sit down for a second?
Okay.
I don't want to stand there next to me. I got a couple stories to tell, I guess.
And you guys are welcome to use the whiteboard there too if you need it.
So yeah, I'm here 2 months from Albuquerque, and what do you know about Albuquerque? Anybody? 3 things? 3 things we're known for? No.
Sandia Mountains are gorgeous.
Okay, Sandia Mountains, balloons,
Red or
red or green chili, and last one.
Breaking Bad.
There you go. So those are the 3 things. But you know what? I spent 8 years as a CIO at the city of Albuquerque. We were able to do a lot of things around smart city initiatives and innovation, and we were able to get that #2 ranking, so to speak. But I saw a really great opportunity here at the city of Phoenix, and I'm really fortunate to come on board. I've been here for 2 months now. We're really getting our plans in place right now around smart city. We'll be introducing that to city leadership here in a couple of months, and then you'll see a full-blown program and publicity around that and how we can work with the local community. We wanted to kind of come here tonight and give you kind of a sneak preview of what that might look like, and really what does a smart city mean. To me, it means different things to different people, but for me, it's about how do we use civic tech to connect our citizens and our residents and our community members to city services in a seamless and real-time fashion, right? So I guess the best way that was presented to me, I went to a community event in Albuquerque, and we were getting feedback from community members about conditions in the city. And there was one thing that came up around tech, and that was, it's easier for me to track my pizza online. It's a great pizza here. It's easier for me to track my pizza online than it is to look at find the status of my police report. Right? You use the Domino's Pizza app. Okay, so what do you think? I thought about that for a minute, and I'm like, well, what do you think Domino's technology budget is? It's a lot.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, in reality, Domino's is a technology company that happens to deliver pizza. And Uber is a technology company that happens to provide with rideshare. At some point, government's going to have to be that in that same way. That's how our citizens are digital. You're doing everything off your smartphone, and you've got that seamless real-time experience. So as we move our city services online, the next step is to make it mobile, and the next step is to really give you that real-time experience with government. And building trust in government is another one of our tenets, and we do that. And blockchain is a great opportunity to do that. Everything we do in government requires transparent, immutable trust. That's what blockchain gives you. So, came here to Phoenix and saw that Government Blockchain Association, with a couple local chapters, one in Costa, one in Phoenix. We kind of wanted to see if we could pick one of those, kickstart the one in Phoenix again. We'll see how that goes based on some of the inputs that we get. But tonight we wanted to just meet with you, you're our local blockchain development community, give you some examples of how you might be able to help us, and we could build some blockchain applications at the city of Phoenix. Open data is one thing that we can offer as city government to our community members. That data is there. It's data that's traditionally been stored behind city firewalls. Now we're exposing that, and we're creating data sets. In Albuquerque, we created data sets around everything from the real-time, the AVL for buses. We had a local tech group create an app where's my bus. Huge hit, right? Do that. We're going to get the AVL on the buses published at some point. The restaurant inspections, I'm waiting for someone to write an app, should I eat here? So you tie that in with Yelp, and you gotta kill it. So those are. So I'll let AJ kind of speak to more of the open data program that we have, how we want to partner with developers here in our community, create a pilot or a demonstration project around blockchain, right? So whether that's a smart contract for land use or for records, anything that needs the ability to track, for things like chain of custody, right, and the stateful possession of a record. So that a lot of things we do in government around. We see things happening in the voter registration area and those kind of things. So yeah, I will.
Before
yeah.
Before AJ says a little bit more, Peter, I would like to make a point that we have a developer blockathon, we call them Arizona Blockathons, coming up October 27th. And that is an event where up to 50 software developers and UI UX designers can come together and create and explore use cases. So it would be really, really awesome to continue this conversation and to, have the city of Phoenix and we'd open it up to other municipalities, obviously, to present use cases and talk about, what are the needs, what's the top priority of needs, and then if you're a developer and you want to form a team or whatever, it's up to you. You could take on one of those use cases and build a prototype, or at least propose a prototype. So
yeah, that's really good. Because what we're trying to do is create a curiosity of data. I mean, data is it's not the new oil; it's just the new bacon. Right? So that's how it's been phrased. And so that's the critical key asset that a city has is data. I mean, you want to know the conditions of a neighborhood. Look at the 311 data that comes in, or that data that's provided through the crowdsourced model. You look at the calls for service. You look at all these data points, and you can really start to then come up with some cause and effect and how a city can best, allocate its resources. So think about some ways you can partner with the city to write some blockchain applications.
Thank you, Peter.
all right.
Good evening. Again, Peter Dodd's leadership from Albuquerque here. This is my second vlog. And anybody knows Jay, his enthusiasm is infectious for blockchain. It's amazing. So I'm looking forward to these meetups every time. Peter talked about a lot of things the city has. So one of the offers we have, what can we offer? We can offer lots and lots of data. I don't know if you knew that, but Sky Harbor, it's the city of Phoenix is there. So again, every flight that comes in, every flight that goes out, it's valuable data. What we need your help on is really converting that to information. When you look at elections, I don't know if you knew that, but the city of Phoenix does conduct its own elections. Again, immutable trust. That's what we have to have with our residents, with our citizens. When you look at water billing, when you look at utility billing, look at the millions of residents who want immutable trust, smart contracts, DLPs, you name it, with the city. That's really where we need to. Because again, you are smart people. Not every one of you is extremely smart. We don't have those resources within the city to solve these problems. We're looking for you. What we do offer is the data, partnering with you. Again, Jay talked about the hackathons. I've done 2 of these with other companies. We have done those with Microsoft. We have done it with Cisco. We have done it in the IoT space. But again, this is the frontier we need to move forward. You look at cities like Dubai, Singapore, many of them are pretty advanced. I mean, if you look at it, we have a superpower. We need to be here. So again, let's start looking at applications where we can really help us jumpstart. And again, the good part of cities and counties and states is we don't compete. We're not the Toyotas of the world. We don't have any proprietary information. We don't need to protect it. We develop something once which works with a good election system. Guess what? All of the 50 states can use it. So that's the beauty of it. You develop something for the airports, everybody can use it. You develop something for water billing systems. You develop something for trash pickups. You build up something for land records. You build up something for smart contracts. Everybody can use it. So look at the potential you got. No one corporation is going to hold you hostage. And the good you do is far better than anything. It's not a corporate versus we are partners here. But the benefits you get with working with the public entities is really, it's a partnership. We are here. Our only purpose in the municipal world is to serve you. Mm-hmm. And what better way to help us out than by harnessing this technology? Again, the open data portal, that's all we ask. PhoenixOpenData.com. Again, it's still in the works. So PhoenixOpenData.com. We have lots and lots of data posted there, but we need help transforming it. So if there's data sets you think we need to have out there, please, you have my email address, your Peter's email address, Jay knows how to get a hold of me, we talk almost every day. Send us an email, send me a text, and say, hey, would you have this kind of data? Again, we talk to the attorneys, so there adds a little bit of delay, but we gotta get to that one, because again, it's your data, we have to protect it. So it may not be a turnaround within a day, but I promise we will respond.
Cool.
So again, the ask is the hackathon, which really is a great forum for us to participate, to collaborate, to work together. I request each and every one of you to help us out.
Cool.
Sure. Everybody has open data. That's a beautiful question. Again, what we do is all of the cities work together because the challenges are the same. For example, let's use the case of a police statement. If you followed anything with police, you can't really put a person's information down until the court of law takes it in force. So let's say when you arrest somebody, you can't really post that data saying that's a homicide. Unless, so those are the challenges we face. You put.
So the offer is just to, that's good. So, but I think it's a great model for us to cheat off of.
Absolutely.
It's called Go Code Colorado. I've heard of it. It's a statewide thing, but it's not to start that way. Essentially, the cities agree and they put their open data out there. What data
Absolutely.
Want. But the gamification of it was they did a year-long thing out to the business community and said what problem do we need to solve? And they would survey the small business community from all over Colorado, and they would figure out what problems they cared about. Narrow them to 6. So one year, as a judge, they did traffic on I-70. If you've ever seen in Colorado, you know that. It's a great parking lot from the airport to Vail. And they said, how do we solve that without infrastructure? So one of the challenges that they painted around was how do we throw code at something that normally takes roads? And so they put up $25,000 in prize money to the winner. They had other prizes, but they had Durango versus Fort Collins versus whatever. And anyone could join it, developer, a marketer, whatever. So it's a really cool initiative. It's still going on there, like the 4th year now. And it's a great model. I can connect you to the principals and Jay to the principals, and we can try and see if it's something that we could do a version of in Arizona or in proper.
Cool.
But it could be a great thing this community could potentially galvanize around in the sense of working with the public.
Well, that is excellent. A little bit to kind of tout our own thing. And again, nothing Colorado, we love Colorado.
No, let's kick their ass.
Phoenix did the same thing. We have these hackathons, and one of our winners actually went to Barcelona for the smart city. It's the other university, Grand Canyon University. There was 4 smart kids who came together. Yep. When you look at the sharing economy, it's like you want to be profit. But the students always have this problem. When we go away, for the summer term or the winter term? Where do we store our stuff? So what these kids came together, I call them kids because everybody's a kid. But they came up with this idea again, the Uber for sharing. So anybody who has garage space, anybody who has extra room in his house, they would start putting it out there and they came together. And that actually was a winner in Barcelona in the smart city.
Cool.
So again, we've done quite a few of those and they have been extremely successful. But spot on, get the community engaged. We need all of these smart people.
Cool. Thank you, AJ.
So real quick, AJ, I got one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Talk about a use case for blockchain. So in Albuquerque, Central New Mexico University there, put all of their, they have a blockchain curriculum, and they also put all of their educational records on the blockchain, transcripts, et cetera. So I'm like the poster boy for why that's a good idea, because every school I've ever gone to is now my business. So when it comes time for me to get my transcripts, how do I do that, right? I went to the University of Albuquerque, and big Catholic school, and they went out of business, and then they moved all of their educational things to College of Santa Fe, and I went there, and I got my master's and all these things, and then they went out of business. So where do I go now to get my transcripts when my new employer wants them? Well, now if I came from CNM, I could just give them a hash and say, there's my.
There's actually a Phoenix company called Parchment that came out of the founders of the Blackboard learning system that does exactly that internationally. Now, all the legacy records, that may be dicey.
Yeah.
But
I don't think
Parchment, a Phoenix company.
Right, but I don't think they utilize the blockchain in there.
Don't know yet.
Yeah, I don't think so.
They didn't 2
So
years
think about
ago.
the myriad of opportunities we've got in government to do the same.
One more question, then we'll move on. So,
What's an immediate I guess what is your immediate kind of goal right now?
Yeah, I would say, I think very similar to what Peter talked about. And again, there's a myriad of applications, but some of the things we keep, here's the thing which I'm a DBA. So one of the things that bothers me all the time is how many years do I need to retain data? 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. If you look at land records, you have to keep them forever. Again, you can talk about crime records, which are 99, depending on homicide. But to me, that would be a good application where you start reducing the burden on having terabytes or petabytes of data forever and ever and ever, because that's what blockchain is supposed to help with. Moving to the mind.
Peter, was there anything you wanted to say about your presentation?
No, I think we covered it all.
Okay, cool.
We good, Jay?
Yeah, let's hold off on more questions. It's great that we've got questions. I would like to introduce Chris Snook, who spoke about Colorado. He's got some awesome things going on, and he's contributing to the blockchain community here locally. So let's go over. I'm going to change it up a little bit, gentlemen. So let's go over to Local Motors, because these guys are actually, we have Adam and Nemo from Local Motors. You guys want to come up and talk a little bit about Local Motors and the Ollie project? And go ahead.
How's it going? I'm Nemo. Yes, you heard that right. Nemo like the fish. I am the design director co-creation at Local Motors. I've been there 4 years. We created the Ollie about 2 years ago. As you can see, it's a cute little toaster on wheels mobility solution. We like to call it an advanced mobility device rather than a vehicle because it's more of a product design derived idea rather than a vehicle designed idea. It's autonomous, seats up to in this iteration, because I'm going to get to that in a second. And this iteration seats about 8. The idea being that it's not meant to compete with the Ubers, the Lyfts, the current municipal transportation systems. It's actually meant to augment and make more efficient. When we approached the smart cities a couple of years ago with the Ollie as a product, what we looked at is trying to identify the commonalities of problems that different cities have. You have cities like Chicago that they have densely packed urban areas, but they have urban sprawl that reaches seemingly forever. Phoenix is also very similar in that the massive urban sprawl. Well, that has a very different connotation when you talk about the transportation issues and how you solve them. Using Phoenix as an analog, actually, we looked at things like light rail, we looked at the buses, we looked at taxis, Ubers, these types of things, and also in Tempe, the Orbitz buses. We looked at what are the problems that lie within the infrastructure as it is now, and we came up with the alley being more of a neighborhood device, a last mile device.
And Nemo, you are the community manager or one of the community managers for Local Motors, and I think this is an awesome concept because will you speak a little bit about your global community that actually goes in, contributes to the design?
Yeah. So I actually came from the community. I was a community member since 2008, and the community is made up of, currently it's growing all the time. You asked me a month ago, would have been 150,000 more, just crested 180,000 earlier this week. Community members could be engineers, designers, enthusiasts, hackers, basically anybody who loves mobility and technology, because we branched out from not only creating vehicles, but also various other technologies with partners like GE through a couple different subsidiaries of theirs, as well as we're currently working with the Air Force and the Marines and to develop not only vehicles, but also various different applications. Blockchain comes up often. So these are some of the things that we do within the community. And basically what we do is a combination of collaborative online environments and crowdsourcing. We kind of mash those things together. It's sort of like online project management with this community. We call it co-creation.
And you actually 3D print, maybe not, do you 3D print the Ollie or?
So this one only has, I would say, about 30% 3D printed derived parts. The current version that we are working on, which we actually left to come here, we left there working on this next vehicle to be at this event, and we're going to go right back and finish building it. That one's like 70 to 80%. I'm thinking we're going to fall around the 75% 3D printed. So what that means is the chassis structure, all the mounts within the chassis structure, we kind of strategically thought about where those modules need to go, and now the 3D printed structure has those mounts in there, as well as the interior, the seating layout, all of the roof structure and the packaging therein. We were able to figure out where all that goes, apply 3D printing to where we're using less, and not completely eliminating metal parts for bracketry, plastic parts for wire looming, and some things like that.
Well, so the cool thing is you could actually print one of these cars anywhere in the world if you've got the right equipment, right? And consequently, it's called Local Motors. And before we get into a question, Adam, if you could talk about, to get this back to the smart cities context, talk about how this is actually like a battery on wheels. So imagine that this thing is moving around the city and charging and discharging based upon whatever the needs are in the city. And you've got, like we saw with Open Innovations, a blockchain construct that allows disparate and entities that don't trust each other to actually exchange data and information. So,
and if I forget anything, you can kind of just chime in. So, all right, I'm Adam Flaster. I'm the lead engineer for the EV powertrain. So I deal with, how everything's powered on this vehicle, high voltage and low voltage. I actually looked at the City of Phoenix open data along with Tempe, how I could exchange some ideas, because part of when I first started Local Motors was trying to find an intelligent way of how you spec a powertrain for this vehicle with all these different configurations, especially for 3D printing. So I mined a lot of data on what would be potential customer use interaction. On the subject of it first being a mobile energy storage system, you saw with Oaken that there's a period of time where that vehicle could run during the day, and there's other periods where it can charge. So part of the advantage of these vehicles, vehicle to grid, is actually to supply energy during, peak power times when everybody's coming home, running their air conditioning. So, one of the things somebody who owns a fleet of these, whether it's a retailer or a hospitality business or a city, is that they can take it back to the yard where these things charge, hook into the grid, and basically provide some of that load for the utility. I mean, these things, a lot of stuff with autonomy right now it's really coming out of the primordial foods. Everybody's trying to figure out what exactly is the right DNA for this product. And I mean, Nemo touched on, we are not like OEMs like Ford, GM, Toyota. They're focused on more of like a traditional selling somebody a car. And, when you look at this stuff, you can see kind of where GM's on this, where it's going to be the fleets where the most profitability is in this industry. So that's why they bought a company like Maven. Our thing here is that, companies would probably own a fleet of these, and there would be some sort of community distribution of how this is being used in the community. So, I mean, we've talked about this on the blockchain application here in the Valley. We use the, crowdfunding application that somebody can crowdfund buying a fleet of these and creating a business. Same with the FinTech Sandbox, where they use a payment system or some sort of leasing system for these vehicles. The thing more on the smart city application of this is basically a mobile sensor and server suite on wheels. So this is going around collecting all this data. And, I really want to touch on this whole thing about smart cities is that you're basically looking at a device interacting with everything. So what you're really looking at wanting to do is having open APIs so that people can integrate in other people's products. So in this case, like you talk about the airport, somebody like Delta sold this into part of their service with a customer buying a ticket where, when they're flying to Phoenix, they can really set up an alley coming to pick them up. Or something if you're buying a ticket to go on the train or bus. I mean, or somebody, if they're going to go out, like either going to Chase Field or they're going out to a restaurant, or if they go on their phone or like they can organize with that service getting out. So part of this whole thing with smart cities, not just selling, this tokenized of need and energy need, it's also, having developers integrate this into applications. I think that's a really important thing here is if you're talking about having speed of code, people coding, creating applications for businesses, it's that whole thing of having an open API, but also trust and network where you don't have this risk of fraud, where you immediately have those tools there. So
yeah, cool. Thank you.
I want to touch on one thing Nate said is when we initially developed Dolly, that was sort of a goal because we realized in order for autonomy to actually get to the levels of safety that the general consumer, even as just a patron that rides the Ollie, should expect, things like V2V and V2I are just going to become necessary. Well, how do you do that when you're one of the first guys, to the party? Having Adam on board, we've been able to really dive into that and figure out what sort of applications could blockchain provide to help with that.
Are you
Cool.
selling the drivetrain itself, or that doesn't have to be a let's say, for instance, can I buy the drivetrain and put a food truck on it?
Well, do you want?
Yeah, no, I want to touch on that. Yes, I definitely do. So one of the things that we want to do is that type of modularity, to where basically that's an empty room that moves. So think of it. I already am working on a group from MIT developing the potential for a completely automated food truck. It's basically a moving vending machine that cooks you fresh food. Hopefully, we'll be able to come up with some virtual prototypes of that to show very soon. Because one of the things that they want to do is take the tech that they developed and put it in an application that's not just stuck to a store, because then it's not as effective as at revolutionizing, cheap, accessible food, which is the whole goal of their project. I also have developed various different applications just in the sketching and exploration of the empty box. Things like a mobile lounge. Instead of going from the airport to a hotel instead of like just taking you there. The alley is your hotel room. Just these types of ideas. We just when it seems like we've wrung that rag out, squeeze it again and get a little bit more juice. So ideas like that we definitely want to explore. It's just finding the right partnership and the right
Questions?
From how we can help you standpoint.
Sure.
You look at your business model today and the roadmap that you're on market stuff today. Who's a relevant intro right now? Who's someone you want to meet, whether it's auto OEMC level, whether it's a venture fund, like who can be introduced to if we like what you're up to?
So where we're going right now, we're going to private campuses, things like corporate campuses, amusement parks, these types of things, because regulation is always way behind technology, which that's one thing we talked about. And so therefore, we want a place where we can have these vehicles moving, gather data with them, better learn how to control that kind of ecosystem in a somewhat controlled environment. So that's where we're going at the immediate future, and say next year.
They would buy or lease or rev share on the shuttle. How would they interface business model wise?
Both. Leasing has been the main one that's been discussed just because the business model has been around for ages. We look at it more in the terms of like a cell phone, where you pay for connection with your cell phone to be able to call people, text, etc. Snapchat, what have you. But then the device is actually the enabler to allow you to connect. So the device is actually less important than the actual service that's provided. We look at Kiali as the device and mobility as the service that you're actually paying for. So a subscription service based around that type of
Last question.
Sure.
Could you speak up a little bit, Chris?
Sorry, on the 3D printing side, are you someone able to, if they own a print point, which is 3dprintpoints.com, specifically about,
okay.
These are gig economy type people that are part of a marketplace that's no fee. You could upload your CAD. I could sit there and replace my part on the Collie if I was not in town or if I was going somewhere. And I go pick it up at someone's garage or house or makerspace because they're in place. So I can order it on my Folly and then go pick it up wherever I'm landing. So is there any interest in connecting into a 3D print organization that is distributed on blockchain and has a I think in 107 countries, most of which probably don't have enough density yet, so you have to do a pilot. But is that interesting or not?
Absolutely. In fact, that was a part of the original concept when we did the 3D printed car known as the Scotty in 2014. That was the world's first fully 3D printed car. When I say fully, I mean about 82% of the vehicle by weight was 3D printed. We did that at the IITS show for the very first time, printed it and built it. The idea there was that we immediately put it on Thingiverse because that exact type of mentality that we don't want to be the one that necessarily owns the vehicle. But currently, since the prototype machine that we printed on, we're the only ones that are commercially doing that. So the vision is there. It's just that the large scale technology that we use is just not readily available in a lot of areas. Aspirationally, absolutely.
I kind of want to touch on both these last two questions, Bob, because the whole idea from my perspective from the powertrain is like deal with these things that can be very expensive. You just bought them one off, and you're trying to find a cost-effective way of delivering zero-emission mobility. So, I mean, the whole idea of this with the 3D printing is that there's a platform that you have a battery, you don't know your steering, you have all the guts of what to make the vehicle move, and you have this. Micro shuttle concept, do a food truck, the motors for this next gen, I mean, we have hub motors on the back that are, deliver over 1,500 foot-pounds of torque. So, I mean, you could have sanitation, you could have it, deal with,
logistics.
Logistics, freight, ground support vehicles at the airports, cases like FedEx and UPS. They're interested in autonomy, but they don't want packages being delivered by themselves just yet. What they look at what's being really beneficial is where they're at airports and ports.
What does it cost? If I bought one, what would it cost?
In this current configuration, $285,000 if you just straight bought one. Obviously, that's not the business model we're trying to do, but that is.
That's the powertrain?
Powertrain autonomy. This is part of the reason, a lot of it's autonomy. This is the reason why, you know, if you're thinking that you're gonna buy an autonomous vehicle, like heck, everybody's gonna buy one. I mean, the sensor suite, the computers that you need on the vehicle, it's just not there to cost. You're gonna see this more on like commercial vehicles.
Yeah, so let's have one more question and then we're gonna move to the next segment. Go ahead, Mark.
I saw a presentation from Locomotors probably about a year ago, and there had been a lot of thought and development that went into giving mobility with those that had impairment, be that visual impairment, audio impairment, mobility impairment.
I like the design on that. Yeah.
And so does that come largely out of your community thinking? And could you talk just a little about those different varieties of impairment and how you deal with it?
So if you saw that, you were aware that we partnered with.
What was it
IBM
at Galvanize, Jay, that we had a day at Galvanize that the Ollie was presented down at IoT conference or something?
Might have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It was also OctoBlue was involved in that.
Right.
Yeah, Chris.
So that arose out of the community in that this shuttle could basically service a community of accessibility needs community that's very underserved. But when we dove into that problem, we're like, yeah, we could throw a wheelchair ramp on there, make a little bit of extra room, automate. We thought way too base level. Well, IBM was very interested because of our use of the Watson technology in developing the accessibility aspect of it. What we wound up doing is we spent a year, again with MIT, also with, I want to say, University of Georgia was involved, ASU was involved, a couple other colleges. Basically what we did is like a hackathon, but in different colleges to derive ideas on how do you break down the problem of accessibility and what does accessibility actually mean in the terms of servicing the underserved. What we found out is it stemmed around 4 major components: is mobility, of course, wheelchairs, canes, walkers, these types of things. Visually impaired, hearing impaired, and cognitive impaired. In addition to that, you have people that have some facet of all of them. With the aging population they're living longer, they're able to have more freedom through mobility, and that's what we try to center the whole project around. So what you saw right then, and what we did at CES earlier this year, was showcase that no matter the disability, the Ollie has the potential by stuffing some really interesting technology into it to service that population, which I don't know if it's the same one, but it's something like just in mobility alone is 3.2 million people who don't have access to efficient transportation in what would be a 10-minute commute for normal everyday moving around people could be an hour from the loading and unloading and making sure that the accessibility van is on time and things like that. We just thought that was unacceptable.
Very cool, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here. We'll let you return to building the next Ollie. How's that? All right. Thank you. Thank you for being here. All right. I think it's just absolutely amazing that we've got a company like that in our neighborhood and we can actually collaborate with them. So Our next experts that are with us are Peter Costa and Dennis Bonilla. And they are respectively Ball 2 Studios and Okay, go ahead.
So I'm Peter Costa, and this is Dennis Bonilla, and we're actually part of Ball 2 Studios. I started as of last week, so we worked different companies. We did so many. We started partnering on a lot of projects together, and we just gel a lot. So we create immersive and interactive experiences using immersive technology, so virtual reality, augmented reality. There's like mixed reality, so they're calling it XR. We just call it immersive technology. So there's a lot of acronyms that you'll hear, which includes real world, not just virtual, but also facilities and integration systems. Yep. So our objective is, first of all, we're trying to engage the public with what VR and AR is, and it's first of all, it's not video games, and that's not really what we're here. I originally started video games, worked on a horror VR experience a couple years ago. Our programmer ended up actually getting PTSD from having to put the headset on so often, couldn't put the VR headset on, and that kind of sparked this idea of like, wow, this technology is incredibly powerful. Simultaneously, I met Dennis, who's using VR for good applications, and so maybe you can talk some of the projects that you've done.
Yeah, so I spent about 12 and a half years working at NASA out of NASA headquarters. Moved here about 4 years ago, and with that came some kind of institutional knowledge around data visualization and simulation design. It's interesting as I'm hearing discussion around blockchain and federated sources and things that we can figure out the nature of and its origins in terms of data. So a lot of that I saw working on Department of Defense and NASA projects about 15 years ago or so, and really just being able to not only manipulate the data but know where it came from. So I've had an opportunity to do some pretty interesting kind of sensor fusion type projects, and I think they speak to what we've been talking about here. I recently worked on a project for ASU, which I thought was, I think, kind of like what we're talking about here in terms of smart cities. What ASU was interested in doing, they won a grant around mapping technology, and they actually have proposed creating a resource for journalists to be able to add metadata to a real-time map stream. And what that means is you have a journalist who is not a coder able to input data into something that would be real-time updated and displayed on an augmented reality system. And so that was done earlier this year. So there are opportunities there that we can really leverage. Things that I've seen as far as the DoD is concerned, just command and control systems, right? Distributed command and control systems that allow that could allow someone like a city manager to share data in near real time with either the constituents or people that need to have access to that information. Blockchain seems very important in that case because you want to have that federated source that compromised source. So that's, I think, for us, we have thoughts on data visualization and being able to really take the data that you all are manipulating and working with and creating and leveraging that in a way that was previously impossible, right? Because one of the values with VR and AR is having something kind of like a holographic display, things that were previously impossible to do on the Z plane. What I mean by that is just depth, right? So there are several sets of data that are just almost impossible to comprehend on a 2D display, which are now possible on a augmented or holographic type display. So that's something we should all be thinking about because it gives you another avenue for data distribution. Yes?
Can you give us an example of something that heretofore been illustrated that you created?
Sure. So distributed system that had siloed data streams, right? So the data couldn't speak to one another. They were on standalone simulators. And previously what would happen is someone would take a camera and they would videotape what was happening on that particular piece of hardware. This might be a $10 million simulator. Meanwhile, happening at Kennedy Space Center, 2,000 miles away, is another simulation, which is a component of the same mission. Now, those two simulators couldn't talk to one another. What I was able to work on with the team about 10 years ago was just simply generating a data stream, right? What you all might consider an XML file or a JSON file, and having there be a client or some kind of application being the intermediary that then delivers the visualization of both of those simulators' actions in one place. So it sounds really complicated, but imagine this. You have an augmented reality system, which is reading perhaps water levels in a city. And you can have a team member on the other side of the city looking at the same augmented reality application. Well, as those sensors are delivering data to that application or to that application backend, both people in completely different parts of the city are getting the same three-dimensional visualization of the water level. So you have things like that. In the case of NASA, it would be something like the development of a piece of space hardware. It might be a stacking operation that's occurring at the vehicle assembly building while something's coming off a factory line at Michoud in Alabama or in Huntsville. For the DoD, what that looks like is, of course, like situational awareness around the mission. You might have drone data with on-the-ground data, with sensor fusion data that's coming from vehicles. We are at a convergence point now from a commercial standpoint, where those technologies that were previously only available at $1 million price points are now accessible to us. The VR headset, when I was working on them, at a minimum was $100,000, and that wasn't even like state of the art. Cost you several million if you could even pay for it. Usually they were custom generated for the application.
Well, when you were at NASA headquarters just a few months ago, they were using the HTC Vive, which is just a commercial product that we use for virtual reality right now.
Yes.
This is NASA, this result that's now going to a commercial product.
Right. So the commercial off-the-shelf hardware now is accessible to them. Why spend $100,000 or $2 million on a headset? You can just go to your local Best Buy and pick up a state-of-the-art VR hardware display. So for the city, it's kind of interesting. We've got these open data sets and these open data streams. For you guys, the state of the art right now is interesting because now with that data, you can start to think about how you can amalgamate it and what are the opportunities there for really layering that information. For us, it's super interesting because you're going to need some kind of data visualization for that. So there are opportunities there. And then the blockchain component, of course, is just being able to make sure that all of that, we know where it's coming from and where it's been. That's important.
To get a sense also of where this technology will be in maybe hopefully 10, 20 years, have you seen like the projection mapping sandbox? I don't know if you've seen that, but they basically taken a projection map, they're mapping the depth of the sand from the camera, and you can basically see the contour of the entire the mountain of sand that you're building. This is more like an analog digital representation of what we'll be able to do in the future of basically if you can pull up a three-dimensional model of your city, you can go and say, hey, what are the specs that are happening in this neighborhood? You can just go and take up a building or pull out a floor on a seven-layer building. And now you have basically three-dimensional data. The other thing that is something that resonates with what we do is we focus on something called VR for Good. And it's not just about data visualization. It's an incredibly powerful tool that we can use for virtual reality, but it's also the element of immersion and putting somebody into a different space. So we've been in the information age the last couple hundred years, and it's about collecting data. Now we have these mountains of data, and what do we do with them? We're actually entering into something called the experiential age, where we're taking this data, and no longer is it just you are a number or a dot on this list of things. Now you are becoming something that can be more meaningful. So what we can do is actually apply a meaning to the data. That, for example, if you're looking at crime, what are psychological responses that you can have if you're a city planner or if you're, let's say, in emergency services and you're looking at crime response rates in a certain area. even putting something like the color red or some sort of visual representation that shows that, hey, this is something like you're invoking an emotional response by seeing what is happening in some of these areas. And so that's a lot of the things that we try to do as well.
I would say that, speaking to that data has its own story, has tons of different layers of stories happening. So, for instance, for the city itself, if you want to promote a particular sustainability project, well, then you show the possible ramifications of not doing it, right? Or you show the current state of things because the initiative was successful 10 or 15 years ago. So there's a component there that I think is unique to us in that we can actually visualize it in a way that's completely immersive. You want to see what that particular area looked like 10 years ago as opposed to what it might look like 15 years from now. But there's a very visceral reaction to being placed inside of it. So that's
Good.
Yeah, of course.
So to put this together for the open data sciences, assuming this is the version 3.0 or whatever. So de-escalation training. The problem with blockchain isn't more what you put on blockchain. So what you're getting at is you can visualize downtown Phoenix area within a fraction of a nano.
Near real time,
right? Where there is no mistake that the corner of that building is actually where it was visually in the world. Now I can de-escalate riots. I can run drills. I can store the training that this police force or this platoon or whatever actually went through this simulation, but they did it in as accurate version of downtown Scottsdale as they could have. And the thing about blockchain is it's almost you can't do those kind of things with a smart city until the input level is accurate. Because once it's immutable, you're not training people to run corner 6 inches shorter than it says. And so this is a really interesting, I think, front end piece that is probably worth really looking at for those who are looking at use cases and say, what if we could train our firemen and our police and our rapid response team in a real world environment? That's what we're talking about with American back when you had the other version, which I can't remember what the name of it now, was in the fuselage in Denver. So that I actually am showing up in the place and I'm learning how to de-escalate a conversation so I don't have to rip somebody off. Or those kind of things get really downhill use case for smart cities to me.
Yeah, I think also kind of to extend beyond what we think about emergency response. Those, of course, are like the initial ideas. If you want to save people's lives, those are important. You want to tackle them. Well, what's an empty lot look like, and what's its value when it's not an empty lot? What's its value when you can change it into anything you want it to be, right? And then with real-time data streams, well, then you can do some simulation around that, right? I want to know what the long-term ramifications of using X amount of water for a building that is 7 stories tall is for a city 30 years from now. Those are the opportunities we have.
So we're going to wrap this up. I think that all those are great opportunities to explore, and we've got an opportunity to work with you guys again at the October 27th Arizona Blockathon. And I would like to emphasize that I think there's some new emerging business models in terms of file storage that might open up some opportunities for storing the data that's collected for, virtual reality, augmented reality, all that stuff. So I think we might be at a point where the economics shifts on, the areas that you guys have been working on.
Yeah,
So.
as always, thank you for the invite. This is
Yeah.
always a pleasure to see you all.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Right now?
Yeah,
Or-
go ahead. Go ahead and
Okay.
talk about the summit.
So just, I was in Washington, D.C. last year. I spoke at the VR for Good Summit, and it was in November in Washington. I was like, you guys got to have it in Phoenix. So after much convincing, we convinced them to have it here at UAT. It's going to be November 5th and 6th. We really wanted to take this as like an opportunity to showcase to the rest of the community that Phoenix is actually a blossoming. It's blossoming in the desert. And
What's the name of the conference?
It's called VR for Good Summit.
VR for Good.
Yeah, and they're actually hosting the VR Healthcare Symposium in March down at U of A in Tucson. So it's great for us because it's an opportunity for the international community to start saying, hey, Phoenix is a place of innovation and development. So we are going to be having, it's kind of like a planning meeting. We're looking for sponsors. We're looking for people that want to be involved in trying to kind of make this presentation to the outside community of what we're doing. So we're going to be hosting that here on September 27th. It's a Thursday at UAT at 6:30 p.m.
So convenient. That's the day after our next Desert Blockchain Monthly.
All right,
meeting.
yeah, we're just.
So what is the,
So the 26th is Desert Blockchain. The 27th will be this VR for Good,
It's a-
basically a community gathering, right?
Yeah, it's a community gathering prior to the summit, which we'll be holding here on November 5th and 6th.
Yeah.
6:30 here. You can go to our meetup, our VR for Phoenix VR for Good meetup. You just look up Phoenix VR for Good meetup. I think we pop up on there.
Yeah.
And we meet monthly at the Tempe History Center. This what is it? Next Wednesday or
Next
2 Wednesdays?
Next Wednesday.
On the 11th or 12th.
Oh yeah, 2 Wednesdays. Yeah.
Dennis is going to be hosting a workshop on creating your first AR app. So feel free to come, bring a laptop. We have some specs on what you can do to come prepared, and we're just here to kind of gather the community and see how you guys are interested in being involved. So, but feel free to email us or communicate with us.
Cool.
Questions. So, thank you.
Thank
guys.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Jay.
so much, Peter. Yeah, I went to the last VR for Good, and Dennis was showing how you can take 2D photo images and with computer software assemble them, so all of a sudden you've got a 3D printable item, which was amazing. So, all right, Mike Lawson is from Oracle. Mike, if you'll come up and kind of introduce yourself, and then I'm going to pull up your presentation.
Yeah,
so.
if it doesn't work, no worries. I'll just wing it. So.
Okay, cool. Thanks. And I'm going to disconnect from the video feed for a minute. So
my name's Mike Lawson. I work for Oracle. Actually based in Colorado Springs. Lived there for 8 years before I based so I'm fairly actually new to the blockchain world. I started kind of really looking at it last year or so. But I've been a long time software developer. Came from a space operations background. Did a lot of satellite telemetry, tracking control software. So when I see these things with IoT, smart cities, and all those kind of things, to me it's kind of like, oh, this is very familiar to me because it's kind of the same thing. You know, data coming from a lot of different sensors. You're trying to make sense of it in the way that works really well. So I put together some slides, more to keep myself focused because I'll tend to start to ramble if I don't have some kind of structure around me.
I think we're close here, Mike.
Jay's going to bring them up. If you can't get them up, I'll just start.
I think this is actually going to work. So there we go. Let me screen share this so the folks at home can see it.
Awesome.
And do that.
So that's my email address if you guys want. So the group I work for Oracle, we are a group of people who do application development. We focus on infrastructure as a service as well. So why don't you go to the next slide, Jay, please. Just get this is basically saying that I'm not going to talk pricing for you guys today. So a little structure. Jay asked me to talk about smart cities, some of the things that we're doing with smart cities, and of course blockchain. So I'm going to go through a couple quick examples of some things that we've done in both the non-blockchain world and the blockchain world. Smart cities. Some of them are our projects, some of them are ones that I think were just kind of cool, so I thought I'd throw them out here. And then I'll talk a little bit about our autonomous blockchain. So
next slide.
Next slide. So these are some smart city projects that we've worked on, non-blockchain. Buenos Aires is a big town, capital city of Argentina. They have a lot of troubles with flooding, wastewater, those kind of things. So when rains come, they have a lot of issues with public safety. So what they did is they went and put a bunch of sensors out in their city's infrastructure.
storm rates, their drains, their valves, those kind of things. Using an Oracle Business Intelligence application with some analytics to get a feel for what's happening within their system. So over time, they were able to start building models. So with weather predictions and current real-time data, they can actually make predictions of how their system needs to react to the upcoming flooding events. So they use a thing called Oracle Policy Automation to define what these policies are, so that they can go out there, change how the system's working, so when these floods come, they can actually help redirect the floodwaters in a way that will help ensure public safety. Not shown up here is that the next step will be for them to possibly automate all the control systems. So they don't have humans going out there, they don't have field workers going out there, they can just control how those systems work out. So, next slide. This one I thought was pretty cool. Google it, I'm not going to spend a lot of time there, but the city of Yinchuan, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. If you walk around walk around the city, your face is your credit card. You step on the city bus, it recognizes who you are, charges your account. They have these smart garbage bins, compactors, so if the garbage bin gets full, it sends out a signal. They don't have people driving around town looking to see if they're full, they take care of them. And they have these things, some holographic hellos. So you walk into the store, big displays on either side of the door, recognize your face and say, hello, Mr. Lawson, thanks, welcome back. Here's some discounts for you. And scary, actually. Yeah, exactly. There's movies based on it, right? So one of the things, so at Oracle, we offer solutions not only for software developers, we also offer pre-packaged solutions. Jay sent out this link, so I'll figure I'll mention this in a bit. So we have this Primavera Smart Cities solution. So, this isn't as cool as printing your own cars or virtual reality or anything like that. But what this is, it helps address the city on the city side of things in order to make the transition to smart cities. So if you think of Primavera as a project scheduler, the Smart Cities module offering provides templates, provides the ability for cities to make that transition from a dumb city to a smart city without losing critical infrastructure for constituents. So that's one of the things that you see a lot of when you see people talking about smart cities is there's the hardware, there's all these cool things you can do with the data, but there's also the other business side of things of how do you get a city to do that. So if you think about doing a startup, this actually might be something to look at. Competing against 10,000 other hardware. Slide. So a few cities and blockchains. So this is actually not a city. This is actually a state's natural resource agency. They're not a public reference for us. So I can't actually mention their name, but they're really big and they're on the left side of the country. They have a whole lot of sensors, about 5,500 sensors. And they're producing a ton of data. And a lot of that data is actually kind of noisy. So with that, we've brought in some of our products. So Primavera is a SaaS application. We're using our platform as a service. So these are things that you can use to help develop applications. So we're using some container applications. We're using our IoT services. Can you go to the next slide, Jay? This kind of brings it into a picture. This is where we're going with it. So sensors are sending data either through some kind of proxy in Docker containers or talking directly to our IoT cloud service. And that IoT cloud service is this really cool thing. We're taking this basically telemetry data, identifying patterns using AI to help come up to some conclusions. From there, we're using some other of our cloud services like cloud integration, mobile, policy, all those kind of things. Either push data to mobile devices so people in the field can actually interact with this data, understand what's going on with them. They also add tickets to their services, so when they're out there, they can figure out what they're doing, where they need to go, what they need to do. And of course, a lot of this data is also going to be pushed down into our blockchain cloud service, where this data can then be shared with up to 40,000 people in a secure and immutable fashion. I'll just go through this. Look this up if you haven't looked at it. Estonia is this cool country where you can actually become a citizen online. You actually have to go there. You can start your own European-based company if you wanted to. Look it up. It's pretty cool. I threw this one here because I think it's kind of funny. City of Moscow, they have this active citizen program where they use blockchain to make sure people aren't cheating on their voting. So, yeah, interesting.
Ironic.
I thought that was pretty funny. But in the city of Moscow, of course, it's I mean, they're voting on naming the new metro line or what color should we paint our seats in our stadium. So that's what it is. But I thought it was kind of ironic that they're using this to make sure no one's cheating on their voting. Active citizens. So I mentioned it once, Oracle, we do have our own blockchain offering. We started selling that general available last July, actually last month. So it's a really cool offering. I won't dive into it too much, but the idea with our blockchain is it's not for cryptocurrency. It's not for Bitcoin mining. It's for cities. It's for state and local. It's for federal government. It's an enterprise type of blockchain. It's based on Hyperledger. It's Hyperledger. So you go into our services. It's one click. You get it up and running. Runs in the cloud. You don't have to figure out how to set it up to do high availability, backups, all those kind of things. It's all there for you. You just get in there, you set it up, and now you're off and building your blockchain. So again, it's Hyperledger based, and I just threw this in here to show our commitment to Hyperledger, and we've joined the consortium. We're actively contributing to as well. So next slide.
So you only do Hyperledger?
That is yes. So if you want to try out a blockchain service, you get a $300 credit. Just go to that, click try it for free. $300 credit for 30 days. You will have to provide a credit card number, but we won't charge it unless you explicitly go and say, hey, I want to still use this. We also have this upcoming application development day where you can go play with a lot of our different cloud services as well, including our blockchain service. With that, if you can wait till November here in Phoenix, you get a $500.
Cool. Is that it? Very good. Thank you, Mike. So I would ask that everybody that presented tonight, please post your links and so forth onto the meetup page so that people can reference these resources. And let me stop the screen share here, and then we'll open it up for questions from everybody. So let's see. I'm going to do that, which gives us the tunnel of the mirrors. All right, so what questions, comments does everybody have? Yes, Joe.
I got a question for the Oracle guy.
Sure. Mike.
5,500 sensors doesn't sound like a lot. We're talking about billions and billions and billions by 2025. Can you comment on that a bit?
So it was really more a problem with the state, with that particular state. They were trying to use traditional IP networks and trying to store everything into a relational database by adding. So they were having a lot of trouble filtering out the noise of those sensors. Very noisy signals that were out. So they had a lot of data in the database. They're trying to filter it using standard traditional programs. So by bringing in our business intelligence applications, they were able to use the AI and the things built in there.
Other questions? Comments? All right.
Actually, I've got a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just something that you all should be aware of. So as far as VR augmented reality is concerned, one of the primary things that we battle in our user experience design is latency. So just to keep that in mind, we're tracking at nanometer scale in milliseconds at a time, and so our need for data streams that are near real time. I mean, we were talking about very, very low latency with, I think, Chris there a second ago. Just something to keep in the back of your mind. Like, we don't have, in some cases, if you're drawing a line, we can't wait a whole second for that line to be updated.
Good point. All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap it up. A couple minutes early, but yes.
I have a question with this. Are there any like, side effects for using VR, like maybe as far as visual for your eye being too close to the screen, or even auditory for the gentleman who have PTSD from putting it on too many times? Are there any consequences?
So there's been a study done through it's a third-party media company with Stanford, and it's basically researching the effects of virtual reality on a lot of it is on children, like under 13, but a lot of it is also adults. One of the big thing that they've realized is really the IPD, so it's the interpupillary distance, is that on some of these headsets, for example, my 7-year-old daughter, her IPD is like 55 or something, and the smallest it goes on those headsets is like 62. So that's automatically going to get your child like looking cross-eyed. So if we do put her in VR, it's like 5 minutes, and so they have kind of these time warnings. We have a lot of really great ethical conversations about what does this really mean. Yeah. However, I don't think there's a lot of like objective data that's out there. That
I would say DoD and NASA is kind of the place to look for some potential side effects. I think the primary concern for companies like ours is really being able to set standards early. It's so early right now that we have an opportunity to prove out efficacy and do research studies with the different organizations. We're interested in like 3 or 4 different university studies just locally to see what the long-term ramifications of the hardware is. But what I can tell you is that we use it to train astronauts and we use it to train fighter pilots. So,
It's very realistic. I can speak from firsthand experience. Bill Maher runs many of the meetups in town, and he hosted a VR session at the Costa Fashion Square. So my wife and I went, and I'd never really done VR before, and there's this setup in the mall, and so we're standing in line, and this fellow who's, middle-aged, looks really healthy, whatever, he gets into this little contraption, and it's moving a little bit, and I'm looking over there, and I'm like next to get in, and the next thing I know, he's ripping off the goggles, and he's getting out, and he's like freaked out. I'm going, oh man, that guy's really weak. Well, then I get into it, and I put it on, and it's this roller coaster thing that's going really, really fast, and I am ready to lose it. So I lasted the entire ride because I didn't want to look like a weakling. I kind of staggered off that thing, and I was literally nauseous for the whole ride home. So.
Yeah, not to be a repeat customer.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are the use cases we're not interested in.
That's right. Right. That's right. Well, the point is you can simulate reality to an incredible degree.
And this is where blockchain actually is incredibly important, because when you can actually create a digitized version of yourself, I mean,
who wants that? Who wants that?
How do you know that that is the president that's sending a nuclear command? We're good bombing some other country. So
you can now spoof video.
Oh yes,
which is amazing. And these guys can tell you about that.
Well, not just that, is when you're in a ride like that, your brain doesn't know the difference between that and reality.
Exactly.
It remembers it as though it was real.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
That's the scary part.
Completely. So, again, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. This was really, really awesome. We have an amazing opportunity here in Phoenix, in Arizona, and beyond to create some incredible stuff that we really can't even envision and imagine at this point. So, thank you. Our next our next monthly will be here on September 26th. Have some topics that are in the works. Also have workshops on September 15th. You can follow the meetup for that. And again, October 27th. If you are a developer or you've got some use cases you'd like to present, then let us know. So. Thank you, and have a good night, and stay.
Good job.
Oh.